Hello there, From17 once again. This is my Ys VIII, Lacrimosa of Dana, Inferno walkthrough. This is the Octus Overlook and the subsequent Path of Eras. I have some bad news for you here, guys. You may know this, I may have alluded to it previously, you may have seen it on Twitter or the various places that I frequent, but I lost the footage here. I recorded the entire end of the game. I fought every enemy along the way in this area, and I was proud of the footage. I think the fights went well, I think it was good, I think it was entertaining, I think you would have liked it, and I think it would have been helpful. And then I noticed that I had a problem with OBS, and it meant that all my footage was silent, so there was no audio. And I could have still used it and just put the soundtrack on, because this game has a fantastic soundtrack, and I think you still would have enjoyed it, and you still would have been able to use it to be helped and everything. But because I made a backup save, just in case this kind of bullshit happened, losing 4 hours of recordings is not the worst thing in the world. It's not the best thing, I wasn't in a good mood. So I re-recorded it, and instead of fighting everything along the way, I'm going to skip every single fight except for the ones you have to do. So I am sorry that most of the game up to this point has been me trying to engage with enemies, trying to show you the things in the game, whereas this stuff from now on is going to be speedrun up the arse, and it's just because I messed up, basically. But the Octus Overlook is a big location where you go from platform to platform. That's a mandatory knockdown, by the way. That's the same thing that those dinosaurs do when they roar. Did you see me laying on the floor? Can you imagine a world where Chris isn't pressing B repeatedly to stand up? Well, guess what? Doesn't make a fucking difference. The reason I don't get anywhere near this enemy after I've finished attacking is because he can do that at any point. And those knockdowns are the worst part of these games, and Ys VII is full of them. Really frustrating too. But each of these platforms is going to unlock a next section, and each one is going to feature a normal enemy, generally a slightly tougher enemy from a location, but they're going to be jacked up a little bit. So you are going to be fighting a whole plethora of mini-bosses, essentially. And for the most, they're all pretty simple because you've learnt them by playing the game, but some of them are still a pain in the ass, like the crab. The crab takes a pounding. But do you see how they all have like a purple bloom to them? Because there's some kind of strange, like, Memoria crystal version of themselves? This is the Abyss Bloom. We fought him in the Archezoic Chasm. He has two moves pretty much that you have to watch out for. He sprays the projectile and then he spins. Stack the crits, hit him with Brave Charger that I'm currently leveling up, and just enjoy the damage that it gives you because it does incredible damage. It's such a good move. And there we go. That guy is down. And look at the drops that you get here. All of these drops are rares. This is the highest tier of stuff you can collect pretty much. The two enemies here, there's the one guy that spits the paralysis juice at you, there's this thing that can spin around and fire all kinds of projectiles. They're the only enemies that you're going to face in this location, but once you touch this crystal, this is the Path of the Water era. This is the place where the first Warden of Evolution resided in. This was his world, his era. And there is a lot of fish in the water that attack you, and then these creatures fire these balls that have a big lingering hit, so be very careful in this zone. Killing these enemies, though, is really good, guys, because you get tons of resources. And then the fight coming up is not a difficult fight, but it's a pain in the ass because he's a troll. So be very careful with the guy coming up. As soon as you get past this part here, it's going to trigger the fight, so drop a save before you do. And then here is the boss, whose name I forgot. He dives in immediately, and one of two things will happen. He'll either attack you with fish like that, or the fish will jump from the side of you. This one is the Hydra Psyche. Once you go up to him, if you're at a distance, he'll fire projectiles with his hands. You want to use that to get Flash Guard to start attacking him, and then after 2 attacks with his hands, he will oftentimes do a head laser. If you can flash move the head laser, you can almost kill this boss in that single phase if you do enough damage. This is the laser, by the way. I missed my flash move, and that was really bad. I needed that flash move to finish this, but luckily, I used the extra move. My team is wailing on the boss, and I think that this will kill it. And if it doesn't kill it, it'll be really close. Yeah, really, really close. So right now, this is the final phase. You get completely bombarded by fissures, and the Hydra will use a breath attack, and then he'll jump up onto the platform surrounded by fissures and start sliding towards you. If you've done enough damage, you can clip him when he lands to stop him from doing his slip and slide move. But if he does do it, guys, all you do is run away from it, get a guard off it, and then the next time it comes round, it's invincible, and just use the charger to go through it, and you'll kill him. My first fight against that dude was way more hectic than that one, and his second phase lasted a long time, but this was me going balls to the walls, do not give a fuck, I'm going to wreck this game, I'm annoyed, so apologies about that. But back into the Octa, descending again, dodging these. I don't like the like squid octopi enemy. I don't mind the other guy, but the big problem with this location is if you get hit by anything, it paralyzes you, and paralysis is a pain in the ass. But here is the Dana frog. He's the dean of a university somewhere. He's now dead, so they don't have a dean anymore. The only thing to know about that enemy is when he jumps up and down, he releases a projectile from the sky that lands directly on you regardless of where you are. You could be in an IKEA somewhere in Sweden, and it'd still hit you. So just stand there and wait for it to land and get the guard, and then use the damage from the guard to kill him. You'll notice too, I tried my best in the game on my first recording to never really wear this piece of equipment I have on right now, but because I'm trying to do this quickly, I've put it on Adol permanently. When I play the game when I'm not recording, I use that piece of equipment all the time. The problem with it is, it makes the game look like shit. It's the same thing that happened in my Witcher 2 walkthrough, if anybody watched that back in the day. In dark mode on Witcher 2, there were weapons that were cursed, but they were the strongest weapons in the game. So I think I intentionally avoided using them, because one of the downside of those cursed weapons is they made the screen look like shit. And nobody wants to watch a walkthrough that looks like that. I understand it, but at the same time I need it at the moment to just get this done. So this is a level 69 Blight Soul. You'll recognise him as the Doxer that we killed in the Valley of the Kings. He has the exact same moveset. He's going to be dead before he even knew he arrived. And then look at all the underworld bones he dropped. All the interesting, was it like sunrise fangs? All the tools that we need to upgrade our weapons. And luckily, the weapon that you take into the final boss doesn't need upgrading. Can't be upgraded actually, because Kathleen doesn't know what to do with it. However, if you do get the true last boss, which is what you're trying to do, you cannot use the Mistelteini, as I call it, even though it's called the Misteltein. You can't use the Appletini against the true last boss. You have to use the previous weapon. So having a fully upgraded previous weapon is immensely important at doing good damage against the true last boss. But this is the path of the Frozen era. At the end of this, we're going to be taking on the big berserker-like dude who looks like a crazy bull Minotaur man. He's called Minos, King Minos. And this zone is actually pretty fun. There's a lot of enemies that you can get a ton of levels off, and then there's these guys that... Look at his axe. Do you see that guy's axe? If that is not an homage to the Black Knight Great Axe, I don't know what is. It is a beautiful wink to Dark Souls, and if it's not, maybe I'm just projecting, but I feel like it totally is. But if you need any levels, this is the place to do it, because these big guys with the axes, they're an easy enemy to fight. They're pretty tanky, but they give you so much EXP. It's really, really nice. And then this is the boss fight, so make sure you drop your safety save. So this guy looks badass. He's level 72, so he has a ton of HP. But he only has one bar. There is only one of these wardens that has 2 life bars, I think. And even that one has really, really low HP, so you don't have to worry too much about them. Even though this guy definitely hits hard and definitely takes a good hit. But his pattern is super simple. He does these hooks that you can really exploit. He has a big jump that you can super exploit for a flash move, as I did just then. See how far away I was and I still got it? And then he has his crazy spinning move and his weird icicle punch that he does that's really slow. The problem with this icicle punch is if you don't get the flash guard at the beginning of it, it will chase you with icicles, so you really want to make sure that you do not miss it, because it just puts you in a bad spot. And then when you combine everything together, as I did just then, you will wreck this guy so wonderfully quickly. But it doesn't mean it's easy, you know? Just because he goes down quick, he's going down quick because we're hitting him 1,000,000 miles per second with everything we have. And he still takes a pounding. So good for you, Minos. You did a good job, dude. Minus the whole, you know, wanting to surrender to the Lacrimosa thing. But we'll forgive you. And then back into the Octa to continue onwards. so we can go towards the next path of the era, which is going to be the insect era. So the enemies here are the same enemies as the other locations, but you'll notice they're changing colours and they're shifting their types. It's a nice touch. I would prefer different enemies, personally, but I can understand why they went with the same dudes. And then here we have this guy, the Ordi Bax. He drops Dragon Crest Stones, Underworld Bones, and Saurian Carapaces. So there you go, Brave, Charge, Mastered. See that? I think when I paused just then, I might have done some menuing and removed it on the edit, because I was probably wearing the training seal, and I want to take that off, because the moment I take that off, we do more damage. And you know what I'm like, guys, when it comes to damage. If I can crank damage, I'm going to do it. And I've just got to the point in Ys VII where I do really good damage, because there's a character by the name of Mustafa who has this move called Dragon Blaze, and it's insane. It costs 90 SP, but it does huge damage, and I'm loving it to bits. But here's the Palladio Sage, or Palladio Sage, however you want to say that. He's dropping all the Underworld stuff, and it's the exact same moveset as the birds from the beginning of the game. That's the spinning move that a lot of enemies have had before. We're invincible in Flash Guards, so we can exploit that, take it down immensely quickly. Look at all those superb drops. That's going to come in handy. And then swap off to a girl so that we can move faster, and we don't have to look at that awful black-eyed screen. But I think it's the crystal to the era now, and then we can go through the era. So this location is really dense. There is a ton of enemies in this particular path, the insectoid place. The enemy directly in front there, he likes to shell you with mortar blasts of energy, and the energy is really, really good at tracking on where you were as it comes down. And then these creatures with the big tongues, they like to break the honeycomb ground so that you fall into the like hive of geometry. So be very careful in this location. Once again, on my first run through when I was recording and I got the accident, I fought all of these enemies. I baited them all into an area, flash guarded, and then just wrecked them all with Brave Charger, and it looked sweet. But I was in such a bad mood, guys. I really was. It couldn't have happened in any other part of the game, could it? You know, something smaller, something slighter. It had to be arguably the most densely packed combat section in the game. Absolute bullshit. But this is Nestor. This is the Psyche for Nestor. My advice for this one, guys, is to put on the fencer on so you get double flash move, and then punish the boss by using flash move. The boss will fire orbs at you, or it will kick you, and then it will do these jumps. If you jump and evade them right, you can then proceed to just punish this boss immensely. The only problem is right now, I don't actually have my extra move. If I'd have had my extra move, I would have been able to finish the boss off there, and this would have been over, but I didn't have it. And it was unfortunate, and it just goes to show it's a testament to how quickly I was going through these sections to just try and get it done. And this move here, you will never have to see it if you come into this fight with an extra move, but because I didn't have it, I had to dodge it twice, and it's probably the most tricky dodge the boss has, and even then, compared to some of the bollocks you do in Ys VII, it's not bad at all. And you might wonder, well, Chris, is Ys VII harder than Ys VIII? No, I don't think it is. I think it's easier. The difference is, when you flash guard in Ys VII, you don't get any invincibility except for the actual frame you activate it on. So if I were to flash guard that move I just did in Ys VII, I would immediately take damage afterwards unless I mashed the flash guard button. And it's an absolute nightmare for that. But here is the Desma Gazelle. This is a 75 leveled crab, and it's a dickhead because it doesn't take any damage. You have to beat on this thing a ton. The trickiest part, in my opinion, is getting the initial flash guard off the poison breath. Because of the distance, the timing's a bit finicky, but once you get it, you'll then be able to keep this guy staggered, stun him a bunch, stack the flash guards, and then just proceed to hit him with Brave Charger and really hurt him. The moment you stun him, he takes full damage, and there's no planet where he's surviving anymore. But there he goes. He's probably the hardest fight in here, in my opinion, because he just doesn't take damage. If you're good at stunning, and you have a build that's moved towards stunning enemies really effectively, you'll have no problem in that zone. But my characters is all about raw damage, and that enemy does not take any. And then here's this guy, who looks amazing with his white hair and his like colour swap. This is the Duskova, level 75. He's like a really fat vampire, isn't he? That's what he reminds me of, like some kind of obese, like failed vampire. You fought this guy twice, 3 times if you did the hunt, and there's just nothing different. It's always the same. So bully him, body him, do your best. And then swap off to Lax here and continue onwards. So now, we're going to revert back to the beginning of the zone, and it's going to enable us to get to the crystal that leads to the Path of the Sky era, which is one of my favourite locations in the game because it looks so interesting. I love the idea of this kind of Deus Ex Machina crazy floaty crystal land. It reminds me of the Tower of Sorcery from Castlevania 64, which was a place I really, really liked, but the only problem is, you only played as that level when you picked the girl. If you picked Reindart, you would do the Tower of Execution, which was a level I hated. But it was also a really cool level because you could get the secret armor, which I think was the classic armor from the old school Castlevanias. So you could get the Belmont armor, which was really nice. But skipping through this zone is a bit of a nightmare because a lot of the enemies have got all kinds of crazy AoEs. Those strange triangles that are moving around over there are indeed a trap that hurt you if you touch them. And one thing I want to point out here is that the normal enemy that I'm ducking past fires a projectile that's modelled. It's actually a three-dimensional geometric shape, and it makes it a lot easier to judge its depth and its distance. It's a shame they didn't do that for more, because the other stuff is a pain in the ass. And then here is the Psyche of Yura. This is the only warden with 2 HP bars, but her HP is so low that if you get an aggressive Yura and she attacks you with physical hits, you will absolutely destroy her. And the problem here, however, is getting her to be physical. Every other attempt I made against this boss that didn't go very well was when she started spamming all the bullshit. This move right now is just like against those giant beasts that we fought with both Dana and as Adol, where you can block the meteorite, get the invincibility, cash in some damage and then block again. The only difference is this one's actually easier because you can see it. Whenever you can see the move, you can block it. When you can't see it, it becomes a pain in the dick. But look how fast she went down. She might not go down that quick for you guys. You need to get lucky with the AI. If the AI doesn't get aggressive, you can be there a while because she'll run away from you, she'll spam all kinds of weird projectiles, gravity wells and all kinds of stuff. It gets really convoluted, but if you get aggressive and she gets aggressive, you'll murder her very swiftly. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the final boss and the true final boss. Fingers crossed at this moment, you've got all the missions completed, all the side quests done, all the reputation that you need in order to unlock this, and you'll be ready for the gauntlet that is to commence. Thank you for watching, and you take care now.